In November 2015, I finished off an application for a vacation scheme. I checked over it again, and sent it off. 4 days later, I got an email inviting me to do a Watson-Glaser test. In fact, the firm actually sent 2 invitations to the Watson-Glaser test by mistake, and I thought that was probably a good sign. I did the test, and then 2 weeks after that, I got another email inviting me for a video interview. I was quite nervous for it, so I kept putting it off, and then ended up doing it the final day before it was due. And then a week later, I was invited to an assessment centre in January 2016. I was in my second year at uni, so that's when you're meant to get the VAC scheme, right? At least that's what I'd heard, and some of my friends were getting them, so everything seemed to be going to plan. Jump forward a couple of weeks and I ended up going to London for the assessment centre. When I got on the train, I was nervous and I was excited as well. And the firm offered to pay for the train ticket too, which I thought was quite cool. I went through the assessment centre day. Document exercise and competency interview. Written exercise and interactive exercise. I didn't know exactly what I was meant to be doing, but I didn't really know in the other stages before, and that all seemed to go fine. So I just guess that things are going to plan. Right on schedule, exactly 4 days after the assessment day, the firm got back to me. Dear Idin, thank you for attending one of our assessment days for a vacation scheme. We have carefully considered your application, but regret to inform you that we will not be offering you a place on our vacation scheme. I got rejected. So that was the story of my first real rejection in my applications for training contracts and vacation schemes. At least that was the first rejection where I thought I had a chance of getting it. And that was the closest I got to a vacation scheme until 2019, until 4 years later. And in that time, there were a lot more applications and a lot more rejections. So I know exactly how it feels to be in that position. You feel that you're not good enough, that your life plan's been changed and delayed and all your friends are pulling away from you. Or if it's not your first rejection, you might feel a bit stupid for thinking that this time things might be a bit different. But I want to make something clear. Rejection in this process is almost inevitable. It's not just happening to you, and everyone goes through those same thoughts and feels just as crap when they get that email. So in this video, I'm going to go over some strategies that I used to deal with rejection when I was going through the application process, and hopefully they might be useful for you too. Firstly, you want to learn how to lose. There's a quote from the author James Clear, and it goes like this: "The secret to winning is learning how to lose. That is learning to bounce back from failure and disappointment, undeterred, and continuing to steadily march towards your potential. Your response to failure determines your capacity for success." Aside from just sounding good, I think this is something that 100% aligns with my experiences in the application process, and it's worth keeping in mind throughout your rejections too. So let's break it down to see what this actually means. Having the ability to lose, but then bounce back from that to keep going after your main goal, is a hugely important quality. And this is something that's going to serve you well in your career, in your life more generally, but also in your applications. With that in mind, those moments when you get that email that the firm has decided to not take your application any further, those are the exact moments where you can train this bouncing back muscle. And while these rejections feel bad at first, training that bouncing back muscle will help that next rejection feel less bad, and it will be easier and easier, and it will really help you go towards your ultimate goal of getting a training contract without being put off. And for me, it was the same. With that first application that I spoke about before, or at least that first one that I thought I might get it, it was really painful to take, and I got really angry and annoyed with myself afterwards. But eventually, as the rejections kept coming through and I kept doing applications, they became easier to take and they didn't feel as bad. So in the context of law firm applications at least, I'd started to build that bouncing back muscle. Now, I know this is way easier said than done, but remember that those moments when you get that rejection email, those are opportunities for you to be able to train this bouncing back muscle. And getting better at that will make all your future rejections feel much less painful. Also, as a bonus, having that bouncing back muscle is something that'll be really good for you in your career and in your life anyway. If you'd got straight into your dream job in your first application, you wouldn't have had the chance to build this muscle, and inevitably it would have been something that you'd have to deal with at some stage in your career. So you're essentially getting a head start in going through those emotions that you necessarily have to go through to start developing this. And hopefully, because you've done it now, later in your career, when you have other challenges, you're a bit more familiar with that bouncing back feeling. Secondly, you should remember that failure is data. Back in 2016, when I made that application in my second year, it's not impossible to think that I could maybe have kind of fluked it and got the vacation scheme, and off the back of that got the training contract. Clearly I wasn't 100% ready in the firm's view. And after that assessment day, I eventually messaged the firm and asked them for some feedback, and they told me where they think I could improve. They particularly spoke about my interview and basically said that I came across as very, very serious, and it was difficult to connect with me. And of course, I was really annoyed that I didn't get through. But looking back on it now, I kind of agree that I wasn't really ready. And that's not to say that I'm 100% the finished article, perfect trainee now, because whenever you start, you have those feelings of imposter syndrome and you're a bit lost at the beginning of the career. But from that rejection and from that feedback that came afterwards, I managed to get some information on an area that I was weak at, which was interviews, and it gave me a chance to work on that. So you can see how failure is data. It's useful information. If you get rejected in your applications, ask for feedback and use that to improve in your abilities. And if you get rejected at something like application stage and the firm doesn't offer feedback for you, once you've got that rejection, take the time to look at your application or get someone else to look at it and really spend the time trying to find out where you could have done better. Out of every rejection, try and spend the time to look at the application you sent in and try to spot at least one point that you think you can improve. And this way, if you address that issue, you'll always know that your next application will be better than the one before. It's only natural to feel disappointed and annoyed after a rejection, and you should take some time to go through those emotions. But after you've done that, just try to take that rejection as an opportunity for self-improvement. Think of what you can change so you can make an even better impression in your next application. The third thing you should do when dealing with law firm rejections is to take time to refocus on your qualities and rebuild your self-worth. When I was going through the VAC scheme and training contract application process, I was so focused on this one goal that it was easy to pin my whole sense of self-worth on my ability to get this. And of course it was painful in that moment, but more generally than that, going through the process again and again and getting rejected again and again and again can have a real negative impact on your mental health and can really damage your self-esteem. And aside from the mental health impact there, that is really clear, feeling that way will just make you less likely to keep applying, because who would want to keep putting themselves through that and being told that they're not good enough? So my third tip is to put aside some time to actively rebuild your idea of yourself. And this can be quite a quick and easy thing if you're focused on it. It can just take like 10-15 minutes to do. So the easiest way to do this is to just get a pen and paper and write down one thing you're good at, one challenge that you've overcome, and one time when you've helped somebody else. And that in itself might be enough. I've made a more complete worksheet that deals with this issue in more depth, and I'll link it in the description below. But honestly, it could be as simple as just answering those 3 questions. And remember, these answers don't have to be law related. They can be anything. Like I would put something I'm good at as music, because I think I'm all right at playing music, and some achievement that I've done. I'd say something like that I climbed a mountain when I went on holiday a few years back. That's something that I thought was hard and something that I did. So that's the sort of thing that we're looking for here. It's definitely not meant to be like a law firm application. And even though that question about overcoming a challenge is kind of like something you might see on an application form, the purpose of this exercise is not to get you better at writing law firm applications. The purpose here is to undo some of the negative impact on your mental health that going through the law firm application process and being repeatedly rejected sometimes has. So that brings us to the end of my video on how you can deal with rejections in your law firm applications. Being rejected is definitely no indication of whether or not you can succeed in the law firm application process over the long term. I'm living proof of that, and my story is not unique. I got rejected again and again and again across 4 years of applications, and eventually I got the training contract offers I wanted. So don't let a rejection, even for a second, let you think that you're not going to get to the stage that you want to get to. Anyway, let me know what you thought by leaving a comment down below or sliding into my Instagram DMs. Also, if you're going through the law firm application process, consider subscribing to my channel and following me on Instagram too. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll catch you next time.